The mountain was too quiet that night. No wind in the pines, no owls calling from the dark, just the uneasy breath of 5 miners who felt the forest watching them. Something moved between the trees, tall, upright, deliberate. Not a bear, not a man, something older. By sunrise, they would swear they survived a siege. By the end of the week, newspapers would call it hysteria, and the canyon itself would earn a name whispered for generations: Ape Canyon. Welcome back, traveler. Tonight, we walk into the deep timber, where the mountain keeps its secrets and the night remembers what men try to forget. The year was 1924, and 5 miners, Fred Beck, Marion Smith, Roy Smith, John Peterson, and a man known only as Hank, worked the gold claim high on the southeast shoulder of Mount St. Helens. The forest around them was vast, ancient, and indifferent to the ambitions of men. Their days were long, their nights were cold, but they were used to that. What they weren't used to was being watched. It began with footprints, not boot prints, not bare feet. These were enormous, 19 inches long, pressed deep into volcanic ash, too long for a man, too narrow for a bear, and spaced far apart, as if whatever made them walked with a confident, towering stride. Marion Smith dismissed it. The others didn't. The second sign came at dusk. Fred Beck saw a figure standing between the trees, tall, broad-shouldered, covered in dark hair. It didn't run, it didn't hide. It simply watched him, as if studying the intruder who had wandered into its domain. Fred raised his rifle. The figure slipped behind a tree. The forest fell silent. That night the men argued. Some wanted to leave. Others insisted they were imagining things. But the mountain had already chosen its path. The next afternoon, while scouting the claim, Fred and Marion saw the creature again, this time on a cliff above them. It moved with startling agility, leaping from rock to rock with a stride no human could match. Fred fired. The creature staggered and fell into the canyon below. The forest erupted. Branches snapped. Rocks tumbled. Something screamed, not in pain, but in fury. The miners ran back to their cabin, a small log structure perched on the canyon's edge. They barred the door, checked their rifles, and waited for nightfall. When darkness came, it came with company. Just after midnight, the first rock hit the roof, then another, then a barrage. The cabin shook under the impact. Dust rained from the rafters. Shadows moved outside the windows, large shapes, pacing, circling, testing the walls. Something slammed into the door. Something else clawed at the logs. A heavy body hurled itself against the cabin, again and again, trying to break through. The miners fired through cracks in the walls. They heard deep, guttural cries, angry, coordinated, almost human. But the attackers didn't retreat. One creature reached through a gap in the logs, its long arm groping blindly for anything it could seize. Hank smashed it with the butt of his rifle until it withdrew with a roar. The siege lasted for hours. Rocks kept crashing against the roof, fists pounding the walls. Voices rumbled through the night, not words, but something close. The men huddled together, exhausted, terrified, waiting for the moment the creatures finally broke through. But just before dawn, the assault stopped. The forest fell silent. The shadows retreated. When the sun rose, the miners stepped outside and saw the ground littered with stones, some the size of bowling balls. Footprints circled the cabin, deep, heavy, numerous. They didn't want to investigate. They didn't pack their tools. They didn't look back. They ran down the mountain, through the timber, all the way to the ranger station, where they told their story with shaking hands and sleepless eyes. Newspapers mocked them. Skeptics dismissed them. But the canyon kept its name, and the mountain kept its silence. Years later, Fred Beck insisted the creatures were real. Not animals, not men, but something in between. Something ancient, something territorial. Something that had watched them long before they ever saw it. And on certain nights, when the wind moves through the trees just right, hikers still claim to hear rocks tumbling in the dark, as if something is testing the walls of a cabin that no longer stands. As always, I'll end my story with a poem, and here's the poem. In forest dark, the watchers wake. Their silent steps make old trees shake. The miners felt the mountain breathe, a warning whispered through the leaves. The cabin shook beneath the night as shadows moved beyond the light. They held their ground against the roar, while stones rained hard on roof and door. At dawn the woods grew still again, but something watched those fleeing men. Canyon keeps what men forget, and guards the secrets not told yet. That's another story from the edge of night. Please like and subscribe to keep the torch alight. Good night.